I've always loved the big aluminum StarCraft Chieftains and Islanders. These small cruisers in the 25-foot range have plenty of room for a family to spend a weekend on the lake fishing. These big aluminum boats were way out of my price range when they were new. At that time, I was just able to dream about them. April 2011, I saw an ad for a 1974 25-foot StarCraft Chieftain Mark IV. It was located in Sarnia, Ontario, a distance of 1,200 kilometers from my home in Thunder Bay, Ontario. It was a steal at $1,500, or so I thought so at the time. I convinced my wife Sharon that we could have lots of great fun with this boat. So on April the 15th, I set out on the drive to Sarnia to purchase my dream boat. When I was pulling my boat home, I crossed the border into the US at Sarnia and then back into Canada at Sault Ste. Marie. This cut off quite a few kilometers. At both borders, the border guards gave the boat many quizzical looks, but didn't ask to board her. At every gas station, people walked around the boat admiring the paint job. The last few hours of the trip, I drove through a blizzard, only traveling 40 kilometers an hour. Finally, the boat was in my yard, and my adventure into renovating a large hull aluminum boat began.
A psychedelic boat that my husband went all the way down to Sarnia to pick up. It's a lovely looking painting, but it's definitely not our story to tell. So we shall be painting it a cream color or maybe something with stripes. We'll also have to gut the inside. We're going to move it over to this location where he's preparing a clear space so we can do some sandblasting and some construction. The motor is fairly good. It's got to come off that trailer. Looks like the trailer is going to need some work. It's going to need a lot of work. Probably we can maybe have it ready for some fishing season in the future. Not really sure, but it looks like he sure has his work cut out for him. I personally think we should paint it blue or green or red or any other color.
My project boat was finally parked at its new home. In 2011, no work was done on the boat. We built a deck on our home that summer. The deck project can be seen in another video on my channel. In 2012, no work was done on the boat. We hosted our daughter's wedding and had a pig roast feast. This can be viewed in another video on my channel. In 2013, I began examining the boat to determine what could be salvaged. Much of it looked okay, but upon closer look, you could see the wood was rotten. So I started stripping everything out. The seats, the floor, the cabinets, everything rotten. I believe the boat must have been submerged for a while. The more the boat I removed, the more damage I found. The styrofoam under the floor was completely waterlogged. Many mouse nests. The beauty of an aluminum hull boat is that even with the rotten wood, the hull is still in very good shape. The ceiling was stripped, the gas tank removed. I don't believe I will reuse the gas tank. It may be rusty still inside. And then it was time to remove the engine. The engine is a 6-cylinder, 165 horsepower engine. I stripped out all the miscellaneous parts around the engine. I put in a set of steps to make accessing the boat safer and a roof to keep the sun off. A structure was built to hold the chain block while removing the engine. After much work, the engine was on the ground. It was time to remove the stern drive. After removing many parts, many nuts and bolts from inside and out, with only a couple skin knuckles, the stern drive was removed. By this time, it was clear the transom was also rotten. I used a grinder to cut the metal that was covering the transom at the corners, saving all the aluminum so I could replace it after putting in a new transom. The final piece was removed and the transom was exposed. After removing the final fasteners and much wiggling and prying, the rotten transom was on the ground. I will use the wood to help draw the shape of the new transom. The hull was power washed to get rid of most of the dirt. The roof and lifting structure was removed, and the boat was parked in my garage. At least part of it was. The plan now is to construct and install the new transom. The transom has to be 1.5 inch thick, so I used 2 layers of 3/4 inch marine grade plywood and West System epoxy. I cut out 2 pieces of plywood and put a thick coat of epoxy on each side of each piece and lay them epoxy facing epoxy, and then screwed them together with short screws to keep them as tight as possible. After curing was complete, the screws were removed. The plywood was given a thick coat of epoxy on both sides and edges and allowed to cure. The rough edges were sanded smooth. Another thin layer of epoxy for a final seal was done. The transom was now ready for installation. Using an aluminum boat's hull as a negative for its electrical system can quickly lead to bad damage caused by electrolysis. My boat's back aluminum wall had some minor damage by someone improperly adding electrical devices. After carefully cleaning the aluminum, I sprayed bed liner on the back plate to help prevent any more damage or leaking. The transom was very heavy, so I used the chain block and my wife Sharon's help to position it in the boat. It is looking much better now than with the rotten wood. The transom was a bit too high, so after fastening it into place in all the little holes where it originally was fastened, I trimmed the top, cleaned it up, and gave it 2 more coats of epoxy. I fastened a brace across the back to hold everything straight while I worked on bending the aluminum braces back into place and replacing the remaining transom nuts and bolts. Filing all the sharp edges off, I put silicone in all the holes before refastening the aluminum to the wood transom. The final rough edges were smoothed out, and the boat was then parked outside under a tarp until the summer of 2014. If you liked this video, please click like to let me know that there is an interest in this topic. Click subscribe to view videos about fishing, OurTbay Adventures, cooking, my boat renovation. Many topics are coming soon.